When I think about podcasting now, it was, the perfect medium to launch this network that I've been thinking about for the past several years. Because, podcasting, it's a world where people are looking for new voices, for different perspectives than they're getting through mainstream media. That's something that motivates me, is to try to get hip hop back on a path where we can do more than what's been done to direct the resources of this incredible culture, that's creating so many billions of dollars for some individuals and companies all over the world back to these communities that need those resources.
And yep, it's the Made in Germany podcast. My name is Junior. Today's episode is presented by Hood Politics, the most dangerous card game in the world. So if you are trying to support me in the work that I do, hop on that website, check out the game. So I'm here today with Dave MAYS, the founder of The Source magazine, co-founder of Hip Hop Weekly, and the co-founder of Breakbeat, the podcast network. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Happy to be here. Nice to meet you.
Happy to have you here. Nice to meet you. Let's put it that way. You are part of the culture, which is hip hop culture. And believe it or not, you are part of kind of influencing us over here in Germany as well with your magazine. Because when you look at social media these days, every piece of information, you can get it quickly to everyone ASAP, by just releasing a post. But now that I think back, when I was looking at the Source magazine in shelves in shops, it makes me appreciate it more what you guys had to do to put it into a printed format and then make sure that it's basically all around the world. And by doing that, shaping the culture, I think I've got a bigger appreciation now thinking about it for what you guys have done. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you feel about that when you think about it? Because what I've read is that you're into the business for almost 40 years. Or you've been involved with hip hop for almost more than 40 years. And how does it make you feel when you see that the work that you've done so far kind of went all around the world and influenced people like me in Germany?
Sure. It's probably, as far as being in the business, it's a little over 30 years, but it's still a long time. And yeah, I mean, I take a lot of pride in what the Source meant and did for the hip hop community from our inception, which was in 1988 when I started it. And I was there for 18 years building the company. The Source was definitely distributed by the early 1990s across the world in a lot of countries. Germany for sure was a strong country of readership of the Source magazine. So we really, helped to bring hip hop culture all over the world and help build the foundation of the communities and the audiences that now, exist in every country across the planet, bigger and bigger now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's awesome. I've talked to people and met people growing up in different countries around the world, and their first real introduction to learning anything about hip hop was through the Source magazine, and so yeah, that's awesome. I mean, hip hop is a global culture, and there's nothing else like it.
No, 100%. So today we're here to talk about Breakbeat, which is a new podcasting network dedicated to putting out or bringing out formats that evolve around hip hop culture. How did it make, let me put it this way, because in Germany, we are as a whole very skeptical. And when we feel that a market is kind of oversaturated in our perspective, even though it isn't, we always feel like if there is more than one or two or three podcasts or whatever going on at the same time, we feel it's oversaturated, and then which makes us then not try to do certain things as well. It keeps us from doing things. And we also always look at America as the standard. Everything that happens in America kind of swaps over to Germany at some point, or to Europe. So every trend that starts in America eventually comes to Germany. So in a market where podcasting has been around for quite some time, a bit longer than in Germany, what gave you the idea to put out a network?
Sure. Well, podcasting has been around for a number of years, but it's certainly, going through a very, explosive period of growth right now. And really over the past 5 years, the market has started to really mature in different ways. When I think about podcasting now, it was, the perfect medium to launch this network that I've been thinking about for the past several years. Because, podcasting it's a world where people are looking for new voices, for different perspectives than they're getting through mainstream media. It's now become both an audio and a visual form. Podcasts actually have the highest advertising rates of all forms of media right now, more so than, radio, television, web, everything. So that's another attractive part of the business. But it just feels to me like podcasting is, that new sort of center of things where, exciting new things are happening and that they kind of will, emanate out from that into other parts of our world. And I think we're seeing that now. You have podcasts being turned into movies or, TV series, documentaries, things like that. When I thought about the right way to try to build this network and fill the void that I see in terms of content and leadership for the hip hop community globally, podcasting was really the natural choice for us to launch everything. So we're really, really excited about it.
Yeah. So you also you started with the format "Don't Call Me White Girl." Why was it important to start with that format?
She's an amazing talent. I think she's going to be a big star. I think you'll be hearing her name and seeing her for years to come. She's someone that just in some ways represents some of the core values, let's say, of Breakbeat that also were core values for me when I was running the source. One is, identifying new talent at an early stage and giving them an opportunity and a platform. The source, of course, is legendary for the unsigned hype column that discovered Biggie and Eminem and Common and Mobb Deep and DMX and many, many others before they ever had record deals. But there were a lot of other people we discovered in other fields and in the media, the people that worked at the source that have gone on to contribute in so many different ways, today. That's one part of it was just, she's kind of like the unsigned hype, one of the unsigned hypes of Breakbeat that I see. The other being our host Funny Marco that I'll talk about as well. But Damona, that's Don't Call Me White Girl's real name. So Damona is she's very street and kind of gritty and raw, but she's also very intelligent. She's not just gonna talk about bullshit all day long. She's gonna get into some real issues and topics. And she's hilarious. I mean, she's just, hands down, she's just really funny. But I like that she's funny, but also smart and it's going to get you thinking about things and talking about things that need to be talked about. Yeah. So those are all things that, I think are core to what I want to do with Breakbeat. So, that's what made her one of. I mean, she is the first show we launched officially last week, and then we just launched Culturati this week. Mm-hmm. And then we have Funny Marco. It's the wrap-up show starring Funny Marco coming. We have my podcast coming in a few more weeks as well. But she's a great, a really, really sensational talent. So I'm really happy that she is the first, person out the gates for Breakbeat.
Yeah. So how to get people to work with you? Is it you, like you kind of mentioned right now, looking for talent and then kind of approaching talent, or is there a way for people to look out for you, or look for you guys and contact you guys and say, hey, let's say, for example, someone like me, would it be possible for me to contact you guys and then get into a discussion where we can see like a mutual ground where we can work together? Or is it you guys looking for people that you think are perfect fit for the network?
Yeah, well, I mean, up until we launched, we weren't able to really, tell people, hey, we're looking for stuff, which we're doing now. So it's been up until now, it's been us, identifying things out there. I've been, I've been following some of these people on social media and different things, some different journalists, and so I've had a bunch of ideas of people that I wanted to get involved with the network. But now that we're up and running, I'm being introduced to new podcasts and new opportunities. So we're certainly looking, and there will be opportunities for people that are already in the podcasting world, such as yourself, to get in touch with us. You can find us on the web is at breakbeatmedia.com, and you can submit to our mailing list there, you'll be able to get in contact with me, through our mutual folks here that can give you my email address if you want to reach out to me. But yeah, as a whole, we'll be monitoring our social medias. We're on Instagram at Breakbeat Media. We have the Breakbeat Media YouTube channel that's going to be really big for us. And we're on Twitter, Breakbeat Media. So you guys, anyone can contact us through those apps as well.
Yeah. And are you also considering working with international talent, or just US only for the beginning?
Yeah, I definitely want to work with international talent. I mean, the vision of Breakbeat is a platform for the global hip hop community. Hip hop is incredibly, vibrant culture across the world in so many countries. I can't wait to get back out traveling around and visiting and seeing more of what's going on in places like Germany and others. So yeah, I think as we get rolling with this, we're definitely looking for things that appeal internationally and outside of just the US, for sure.
Yeah. Have you when you look at the market, like internationally, are there like several or certain markets that you've already looked at and that you've identified for yourself? So I don't want you to put out your whole strategy right now, but as much as you can say, are there certain markets where you feel they're like very interesting and where you would like to approach certain people or certain communities to work with them? Because I know that there's like a huge UK scene, for example. Their kind of hip hop is a little bit different because they've got their grime and stuff like that going on over there. But nonetheless, it's really big in Europe. And I think it also swapped over to the US as well. Like you have people like Stormzy coming over to US shows and promoting his albums and projects out there. So have you identified any markets that you feel are very interesting, or are you still looking?
Yeah. I mean, I think as a whole, there's so many different international markets that are interesting, for hip hop. Europe has obviously been involved, has had a lot of people, involved with hip hop for many, many years. But, now you have China, and you have, India, you have Africa, some of the English language countries, obviously UK, is a top priority because, again, hip hop's been huge over there. They have their own style of things that they do, but it's also, resonating here and other places. One of our strategic partners in the launch of Breakbeat is a company called DAX, and DAX is owned by Global Media, which is based in the UK. So I was actually excited to be able to bring them in as a partner because of their international reach, and particularly throughout Europe. Global Media has a strong reach. So I think that will, UK and Europe will be among the first markets that we target, because of that. Canada, Australia come to mind also because of the language, English language being more predominant, may make it a little easier to get, going at a scale. But I think we can go all over.
Yeah. So who is Mr. Kendrick Ashton? I haven't heard of him yet because I'm trying to be kind of in sync with the culture. So
Yeah.
everything that I'm doing is mostly influenced by things that I see from like the US media. So I'm very influenced by Joe Rogan. I constantly look at content coming off of the Breakfast Club. So I'm always looking, I'm always trying to keep up, but I haven't heard of him yet. So how did this partnership come together? Why was he the right person to work with, if that's
Sure.
okay to ask?
Yeah, of course, of course. He's an amazing partner. I'm really, really, thankful to have him as my partner in getting this off the ground. I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C., and so is Kendrick. I'm a little older than Kendrick, but we're both D.C. natives. Kendrick has a very different background from me. He wasn't involved directly, in hip hop over the years, but Kendrick has a law degree and an MBA from University of Chicago. He was in investment banking in New York for about 15 years at a very high level. He was a founding member of a very successful investment bank. He moved from New York back to Washington, D.C. a few years ago to pursue being more of an entrepreneur in other areas. He opened a facility in 2018 called the St. James. And if you look it up online, it's right outside Washington, D.C. in Virginia. And it's one of the most amazing facilities you'll ever walk into. It's a 500,000 square foot sports, health, entertainment destination location. I mean, they've got 2 indoor ice hockey rinks, an indoor soccer stadium, a restaurant, a spa, Olympic-sized swimming pool, a water park for kids. First class, gym. It's mind blowing if you're into sports and health and things like that. Somebody in Washington, D.C., we had a mutual friend who invited me to one of Kendrick's events he was hosting a few years ago. And we met there and just started talking. And he knew all about me and the source, being that he's from D.C., DC, a lot of D.C. people, kind of took pride that, one of their own was up in New York making things happen back in the day with the hip hop world. So we just started talking and we got to become really good friends. And I began telling him about, the idea I had to create a network for the hip hop community. And, I asked him if he would just kind of help me sit in with some of the ideas and planning. And one thing led to another. And we decided to become business partners. And although his background is very different, on the one hand, that's part of what makes him a great partner, because I don't have that level of experience. One of the biggest mistakes I made at the source was, gambling financially, with bank loans to to invest into the internet. Interestingly enough, when it first arose, I, kind of bet the farm on the source.com. And, that was really one of the biggest mistakes I made that hurt me. So having somebody, that really knows, business and finance at a very high level is great, but he's also a huge hip hop fan. He knows hip hop extremely well, and he's very creative. He has a lot of great ideas. He was the one that pushed me to launch Breakbeat as a podcast network. We have a technology side that we're developing as well, and that'll be something we'll introduce, next year. That's going to be really big, I think, as well. But so yeah, he's just a great partner. I'm very, very fortunate to have him. And people who don't know him, will get to know him as we get going with this more, and see what he represents.
For sure. You've been around the industry for some time now, and I always ask or try to ask questions based on the German perspective, because we always like to be like very secure. And when we do something like, say, get a job, we are trying to hold on to that job for dear life and make sure that we keep it, because we're all about security. We're all about not taking any risks as a whole. But you've been around for some time and you've already achieved amazing things. What gives you the energy to still try to do new things, such as Breakbeat?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is, I fell in love with hip hop at a very young age. And when I started the Source, I was 19 years old. And it was a piece of paper, a newsletter I started. But very early on, I really saw the power of hip hop. I felt like hip hop was something that was going to revolutionize the world and in a positive way from my perspective, and I think that, hip hop has certainly had an enormous impact on the world over the last, 40 plus years and continues to. But I also feel like it can do so much more. And, when I got involved with this, with the Source in those first 5 to 10 years, this is when hip hop really began to emerge as this really powerful culture and movement. By 86 is when, most folks would agree that the golden era of hip hop starts. And that's when, Rakim comes on the scene, and then, KRS-One and Boogie Down Productions and Public Enemy and NWA. And you have this incredible voices and energy, and it's, it's the lyricism, and but it's also the consciousness. So as the Source was growing, it was like, we're gonna, really change the world, not just in entertainment, but socially and politically. And somewhere along the way, as hip hop became more commercialized and more driven by the music side of things in the music industry, I think some of the other, really important and valuable aspects of the culture have become, not as important and been diminished. And, so for example, I just look at, hip hop comes out of the struggle and adversity of people who've grown up in the inner cities of America and, now around the world. But its creation came out of the struggle and the pain of people growing up in those inner cities that have been victimized by racism and systemic racism, for hundreds of years and continue to be. And so I always felt like, hip hop was an art form and a culture that was kind of undermining that racism that existed. Because for me as a white, young man getting into hip hop, I was learning so much from, the KRS-Ones of the world, and just, the way they made you think about things, so you could see that, there's a lot of bullshit going on, around here, and the way we're being taught, and this, that, and the other, and that sort of thing. So, I believe that, it would be really empowering and unify us, but unify us with a focus on what we need to do to, get rid of racism and the conditions that it's created. And the fact is, 30 years later, things are just as bad, if not worse, than they've been for those communities. The violence, the crime, the, incarceration rates, I mean, it goes on and on, all the disparities that are there. And, that's something that motivates me, is to try to get hip hop back on a path where we can do more than what's been done to direct the resources of this incredible culture, that's creating so many billions of dollars for some individuals and companies all over the world back to these communities that need those resources. And I think that, what the Source did as a media platform, we were a platform that could really, we were fighting for the hip hop community and fighting with, these mainstream media outlets to give a voice that they weren't given. And, I think that as we grew, we had influence, and the Source was really able to have an influence over the direction of the culture and the way that people thought about different things. And we were moving into even a more political phase with the Source the last 4 or 5 years that I was there. I started the first hip hop summit, political summit, with Reverend Al Sharpton, and tons of hip hop folks involved, and many other things along those lines. Yeah, to answer that question, I mean, that's one part of it. And I just think that, there's this void, there's still a void. The vision that I had, what I was building with the source, kind of got cut short. I left the source after that, .com mistake I was talking about and other things that happened. And I didn't really get to finish what I was building and where I was going. And I just feel like nobody's kind of picked up that torch and run with it the past 15 years. That, there's some great hip hop platforms and content out here, but, and it's all over the place. You can find one thing over here, one thing over there, but there's just not a unified, sort of central trusted platform that the hip hop community around the world can say, hey, I know if I check what's going on Breakbeat, they're going to give me the real, they're going to tell me what I need to know. They're going to give my perspective and be a voice for my concerns and my thoughts and issues. And, that's what I'm hoping to do with Breakbeat, and, build an international business, but a business that, is about empowering, people that deserve to be empowered, in the communities in particular from which, again, hip hop has emerged, and in a lot of ways continue to be the lifeblood of hip hop, still comes from those communities, as well.
Yeah. Because you said something earlier where you mentioned brands, and that's something that I've kind of noticed over here in Germany, especially like after incidents like George Floyd, that brands kind of realize that putting Black people on their adverts and into their advertising kind of makes sense. But I'm not sure if those people who make those decisions are really part of the culture or really are involved in the culture, and if they do it for like the appreciation of the culture, or if it's just like a quick money grab. Do you feel that the culture as a whole is being appreciated enough, or is it just does it feel like something where I've kind of described, where people just see an opportunity, just do something, get something out of it, and then everything still keeps on going the way it does? Because the people, I think if you want to, like, especially as a company or a brand, if you want to kind of bring change, you would have to change things in the structure, kind of where it shouldn't be the same people still making the same decisions on, like, saying, I want this guy or I want that woman or that girl in the advert. I think there should be something in between where people from those communities or from that culture are involved and can kind of work with them together and then say, hey, I think what you're trying to do, it doesn't really work. You shouldn't do that. Let's go another way. And I don't really see that happening in Germany. I don't know what it looks like in the US.
Yeah, no, I think you have a great point. And that's one of the other, issues and motivating things for me, is to get into that kind of corporate brand advertising world, because I do think it's more of what you were saying, that people just see it as, a good marketing, idea. They don't really understand it. And that's what's interesting, because when I was starting this and building the source in the early 1990s, one of the other things I take great pride in, I was the person that went to corporate America first and explained to them what hip hop was and helped convince them. I can remember, flying out to Portland, Oregon, to the headquarters of Nike in the early 1990s with a backpack of Source magazines, and somebody had gotten me some meetings there. And I mean, at that time, they were so far removed and out of touch with what hip hop was or anything. You'd never believe it now, because all these companies, hip hop is all over everything Nike does today. But, back then they had no clue about it. And I was that voice that was going out around to these companies and ad agencies and really kind of bringing that passion to get them to understand, and then to create more meaningful ways of connecting. Because I think, like you said, it's because of George Floyd, everybody, wants to check a box and put some money towards this, that, or the other. But if it's not really going to make a difference, at the end of the day, if it's not being done necessarily the right way, then, what's the point? So that's an area as well that I'm so anxious to get back into this corporate world, because I can speak to that in a way that, you know, not too many others can, because, you know, I've been there and I've watched this, and I really feel like, as you know, even the people that are making these decisions, they probably, you know, 30 years ago, they weren't listening to hip hop. They didn't really know what hip hop was, the people I was talking to 30 years ago. Now, today, they may be a lot more familiar with it because, you know, if they don't listen to it, their kids are listening to it. They know what it is. But I still think they don't really get it. Hip hop still gets sort of stereotyped and pigeonholed, like, you know, it's just this urban, you know, music thing, and it's all about the, you know, the bling bling and the girls and the materialism, and you know, obviously that's one aspect of what we see a lot through, you know, music videos and the music industry, but they don't really appreciate the depth and complexity of the culture and the way it affects our lives, the way it affects the way we think about things. So I'm anxious to get in to that area and be a force in helping to, you know, create that change that you're talking about, that absolutely, you know, needs to happen.
Yeah. I have like one last question based on what you just said. Do you feel that we're going to get there at some point? And do you think you're going to see that time where or do you think you're going to see that change in your lifetime, where we get to a point where things have changed for the better? Yeah. Do you think you're going to?
I do. I mean, you know, this is why I'm waking up early and going to sleep late every day. I'm a vegan now. You know, I'm probably in the best shape, you know, health and physically I've been in all my life. I'm working out, you know, 3-4 days a week, and, you know, I'm on, you know, the plan for the next 50 years of my life to, you know, get this job done that I started, you know, when I was 19. I never finished. I didn't get the chance to finish the job. So I am. I know a lot of people are pessimistic because, you know, things haven't changed no matter what. You know, now you got George Floyd, but, you know, yeah, but what's really changing, you know, it's, you know, I don't see the type of material changes that you would want to see, even coming off, you know, the whole George Floyd situation. But I think hip hop is that, you know, is that superpower, you know, that can be kind of re-sparked and reoriented to blaze that trail and change things. So yeah, I'm optimistic that in my lifetime and yours, you know, we will see some more meaningful and, you know, substantial change.
All right. So tell us where we can find like all the content that is coming out really soon, or which is online already and is coming out in the next few months.
Yeah.
And also your socials, where people can find you.
Sure. Well, you know, so Breakbeat is doing both audio and visual podcasts. Some are just audio, some are both audio and video. So all of our audio podcasts you can find on any podcast app that, you know, Spotify, Apple, other large podcast apps. You'll be able to find all our shows. So you can, right now you can find Don't Call Me White Girl, and you can find Culturati, and, you know, then we'll introduce the other shows. Our visual shows currently you'll find on the Breakbeat YouTube channel. So if you can go to YouTube and just search up Breakbeat Media, you'll find our visual content there. Our website, breakbeatmedia.com, is sort of like a hub where you can kind of get a look at all the different shows we have and things that are coming up. And you can find links there to our socials. We're at Breakbeat Media on IG, Twitter, so you can find us there. My personal following is at The Real Dave MAYS on Instagram and on Twitter. So if you want to follow me, go there. And yeah, we've got some incredible content coming. We didn't talk about all of it. We talked about some, but there's you know, some great stuff in the works. We have some really great kind of documentary series, you know, that we're doing, like documentaries in podcast form. The story of the Unsigned Hype column in the Source magazine is being told in an eight-part series that'll come out early next year.
Nice.
The story of Larry Hoover is one of the reasons I'm in Chicago. Is we are telling his story with the participation of his family for the first time ever, and he has such an incredible and still very highly relevant story that needs to be told, and hopefully can have an impact on getting him released from prison, that which he deserves. Yeah, those are some of the other things we have coming down the pike for people to look for. So yeah, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media, and check our website for updates, things like that.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to all the content that you just mentioned, especially the Larry Hoover one. And I will keep a close eye on what's coming out in the next few months and years.
Yeah.
So, Dave, thank you very much for taking your time to sit here with me and talk about Breakbeat and sharing your vision.
Yeah.
And also, thank you very much for everything that you've done so far for hip hop and the culture, and what you're also still are going to do. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It was great speaking with you, and I'll be looking out for the episode and everything, and we'll keep building. And like I said, you can get my email from Teresa or Julia, so we can follow up.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dave. It was a pleasure talking to you.
You take it easy.